Flawedcast episode 254. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. If you mess with the bull, you get the horns. Anonymous.
Flawedcast. Get in the arena.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all of our esteemed Flawedcast listeners. Want to welcome and thank everybody back to a fun-filled, educational, probably triggering episode. And we're just going to let you know at the top, we are talking about some political things and some things I felt the Lord kind of say to me or share with me personally. So I'm going to share with you. But before we get into all that, once again, thank you for tuning back in. Just to let you guys know, I will be speaking this coming weekend and next weekend, February 1st and February 8th, at our home church, Freedom Assembly in Mentor, Ohio, right off of Heisley Road. Times are at 10:30. Come on out. I have some pretty powerful words I think the Lord's given me. I'd love to share them with you. I'd love to see you guys. I'll have copies of my book in person. I can sign and get you one if you like. But once again, that's Sunday, February 1st and Sunday, February 8th. Freedom Assembly of God on Heisley Road in Mentor, heading north towards Headlands Beach. Time is at 10:30. So coming out and want to see you guys, want to shake your hand, give you a hug. You can find us anywhere podcasts are, and asking you to share these episodes, asking you to leave a 5-star review, asking you to leave a comment, put on social media, text to your friends, just get the word out about what we're doing here at Flawedcast, and just appreciate all of our listeners and everyone that's involved in this community so much. You can find us anywhere podcasts are. Just search Flawedcast CLE. We're on Apple, Spotify, Breaker, Anchor.fm. Once again, anywhere podcasts are, just search Flawedcast CLE. You can find us on the video platform Rumble. That's also under Flawed Inc. You can also find us on the Project Mockingbird social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Getter, Gap, Parler. We are also now on Threads. All that is under Flawed Inc. In the description of this episode, you'll find a link to pick up a copy of my book, Smith's Heart of Man Repair Manual, and our email is flawedinc@gmail.com. Questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to send them that way. But let's get into the meat, the potato of this episode. And so there's a lot that's going on right now, a lot of information, a lot of misinformation, a lot of politicizing, a lot of, honestly, nonsense about what's going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota, what's going on throughout the country with ICE. And what I will say is that if somebody is in this country living and they don't have the proper documentation, they're not a citizen, a natural born citizen, they're not here on a green card or a visa, they're here illegally. So that by definition means that they are breaking the law. And we have to understand that in this process that there are a lot of people that are here that have broken laws in other countries, and they've come here and they've broken other laws here. And I think this is really the crux of the issue. And I'm just going to share the verse the Lord shared with me. I'm going to read it from the Amplified Bible. This is Romans chapter 11, verse 22. It says, "Then appreciate the gracious kindness and the severity of God to those who fell into spiritual ruin, severity, but to you, God's gracious kindness. If you continue in his kindness by faith and obedience to him, otherwise you too will be cut off." You know, other translations just simply say, "Behold the severity and the kindness of our God." And as I was watching all this stuff, just looking at everything, what really dawned upon me was the extremes of what's happening, the extreme of the point of view. And I started just kind of asking and talking God and about all this stuff, like, what is your thought? What is your position? Just a side note, I think God likes when we engage in conversation with him about those kind of things. And I just felt like he led me to this verse. Behold the kindness and the severity of our God. Severity to those who don't know him or who are stiff-necked to him, but kindness to those of us who love Jesus, who are serving the Lord to the best of our ability. And it seems like a weird thing, like diametrically opposed, that God would be so severe yet so kind to people. And in this juxtaposition, I really was just kind of led on this path to look at all of this. And we have to realize a couple things. I'm going to share an article, and this is the one incident I'm going to be talking about that really kind of creased me this week on a personal level. But, we have to realize that everything going on right now, like we've said time and time again, is spiritual. If we simply look at this as a left-right paradigm or a Democrat-Republican paradigm or a progressive-conservative paradigm, we've really lost. We must look at this as a good versus evil spiritual war. And, you have people on one side saying, we have a tyrannical government that are rounding up people here illegally who have committed crimes. And then you have other people who I would like to think are more normal in regards to their response, which is, we don't want criminals in our country. We don't want rapists. We don't want drug traffickers. We don't want sex violators. We don't want murderers and thieves in our country. There's enough to be dealt with in this country. We don't need, especially others from other country. And that's the primary purpose of ICE right now. But, I just want to share a couple things. In Minneapolis, 4 blocks from where George Floyd incident happened, there was the Renee Good incident that happened a couple weeks ago. Then this weekend, Alex Peretti was killed. And a lot of this was an FAFO situation. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. The gentleman was carrying a gun. He didn't need to. And there's claims that the gun was fired. Apparently, this particular model is known for misfire. So it could have been a complete accident, given the benefit of the doubt that it was. The officers, the federal agents that are trying to perform a duty, and there's people that they're not just protesting, they're doing more than that. They're agitating. And we know they're just professional agitators that have been in the midst since the summer of love in 2020 with the Black Lives Matter and during COVID and all that. But he was killed by an ICE agent. And as I look at this, I'm looking just on face value, where we have people that are on one side of the aisle saying that this is illegal, that they're taking people from their families, taking people from their homes. They don't have warrants, which none of that is really true. It's all dynamics. It's all smoke and mirrors to arouse feelings, not legitimately what's happening. However, my concern, and certainly I think a lot of people would share this, is the potentiality of a police state. And I think we're a long way off of that. But, just in Minneapolis alone, I remember video from the summer of love 2020 when Minnesota Governor Walz assigned the National Guard to shoot people just sitting on their front porch during COVID lockdown. The National Guard was shooting rubber pellets and beanbags at people just sitting on their porch versus criminals who have broken the law because, one, they're here illegally, but two, they've also committed a series of crimes, and having them trying to be held accountable so that they can be dealt with by the judicial system. I really have a hard time comparing the two. And the one incident that really kind of creased me, I'm going to read here. It happened this past week, and it says, DHS arrests 3 ringleaders of St. Paul church riot for federal crimes. This was released January 3rd, 2026. It says, suspects face federal charges for their attack on churchgoers' religious freedom. The Department of Justice is arresting these individuals in connection with a planned riot at a church in St. Paul, Minneapolis on Sunday. On Sunday, January 18th, Anti-Immigration and Custom Enforcement, ICE, agitators stormed into the city's church in St. Paul, shouting down churchgoers in the middle of service. Protesters targeted the church, accusing one of the pastors of working for ICE. On Thursday morning, security investigators HSI, alongside FBI partners, arrested Nakima Levy, Armstrong, Chantel, Louisa Allen, and William Kelly in connection with Sunday's riot. The 3 are being charged under 18 USC 241 Title 18 USCS Section 24(1). It makes it unlawful for two or more persons to conspire to injure, oppress, threaten, or intimidate any person or any state, territory, or district in the free exercise of enjoyment of any right or privilege secured to him or her by the Constitution or the laws of the United States, or because of his or her having exercised them. Religious freedom is the bedrock of the United States. There is no First Amendment right to obstruct someone from practicing their religion, said Secretary Kristi Noem. ICE and other federal immigration law enforcement have arrested more than 10,000 illegal aliens in Minnesota since January 20th of 2025 in response to the robust enforcement of law and order. Leftist agitators have attacked organized riots and have attempted to thwart law enforcement daily, even as they face a 1,300% increase in assaults against a 3,200% increase in vehicular attacks against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats against them. The brave men and women of ICE will not be deterred. I actually got this from DHS.gov, the official website. What happened was these anti-ICE, quote-unquote, protesters, I'll call them rioters, went into the city's church in St. Paul, which is, if you're aware of the area, St. Paul and Minneapolis, they call them the Twin Cities because they're right next to one another. But there was a belief that the lead pastor of the city church was an ICE agent, and they went there mistakenly, which, doing a quick search on even just their Facebook page, they would discover that. But they're just so fueled with anger and rage that they decided to go ahead and disrupt the service. There's video of it. I'm sure you've seen it. And I think all of them need to be arrested. Certainly the leaders, the St. Paul mayor, Minneapolis mayor, people involved in governance of this area who didn't help at all. The police have stood down, and you cannot use the First Amendment to infringe upon someone else's First Amendment rights that they're practicing, which is what Secretary Noem said. I certainly agree with that. I think you can protest. An example would be protesting outside while allowing the congregants to go inside church and worship. However, this is not what happened. And my contention is this on a couple different levels. First and foremost, where are the men in this church to stand up and shut this down? And where is the men across the country? So when this begins to happen again and again, are men going to stand up and just shut this down? Looking at this crowd, I think a handful of gentlemen who are resolute and devout would be able to deter this very easily. But instead, we've been so cucked and defanged. We don't stand up anymore for ourselves, and certainly for the Lord. So I really take contention with that. But the other thing I really want to discuss is when you start to bring in the element of we are going to disrupt, we are going to come against people communing with the Lord, we're at a different level now. I'm sorry, I can't help but look at it any other way. And my thought gravitated towards the Roman 11:22 verse. Behold the severity and the kindness of our God. And I don't know how that applies either way. I don't know how the severity and the kindness applies to the rioters. I don't know how the severity and kindness is placed to the people that stood by and did nothing. I feel very perplexed right now even as I'm talking about this. Like, I have all these notes and, I have all these things I just wanted to show and prepare. And I have some clips I'm going to play here in a moment, but we're just in a weird time where I think we need to become more offensive. We need to become more outspoken. And I don't mean offensive as in a lot of these people who are LARPing. This Alex Preddy carrying a gun to a quote unquote protest, by definition, is not a protest. It changes the environment. It changes everything. And when an escalation comes, we have to be prepared of that escalation. It reminds me of that scene in The Untouchables when Sean Connery's talking to Kevin Costner.
Want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way.
And I just can't help but think of that. A couple other things I do want to discuss, though, is there is such a huge problem with immigration. And, if you think, there's no illegal people, there's no such thing as an illegal person. Okay, a country needs a way to keep its borders secure, or else it isn't a country. A country needs to be able to take count and take stock of their citizenry. You know, people say Jesus was a refugee. He was not. When he was being born, Joseph took Mary, his soon-to-be wife, to Bethlehem because he was of the house of David and was reporting to the census. He was confirming he is not illegal. And I think the notion of allowing our feelings to be manipulated by the press, by politicians, I think we just need to stop. We need to look at it realistically, that this is a good versus evil. Everything that's being perpetrated right now, we've seen in movies like Civil War that I've talked about, the latest one battle after another. And we see that there is an escalation and a pushing and a prompting towards a full-on civil war, and especially since Trump was reelected. And there is just a onslaught of these things happening. And, you know, we've talked about the Podesta plan. We've talked about in the past these other things that are going on that are promoting the Podesta plan. There was an article of August 3rd of 2020. It's called Preventing a Disrupted Presidential Election and Transition. And this was in the New York Times. And basically, it's the Podesta plan laid out. It's what is going on here. The professional agitators, professional rioters at these, this is now being uncovered. This is now a fact when you look through the pictures of the people in the crowd. But also, people are being led astray. They're being confused. I'm going to play a clip right now from then President Biden talking about surging the border, talking about that particular demographic has allowed what is going on to escalate to just this unfathomable level. So here's that clip.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
All right, that was President Biden talking about surging the borders, and we need to be just. We need to take people in, especially if they're from these horrible countries, and there's a proper way to do that. I believe in refugee statuses. I believe in offering visas to those who have work to require and to utilize those. I believe in the pathway to citizenship to be promoted and to be used in a judicial manner, but we are not going to be able to sustain ourselves any longer. The Cloward and Piven theory is being enacted. We see that people who are disabled in this country, veterans, people who are on retirement are getting paid way, way less than people who never have partaken in these social programs. These illegal aliens that are here, they are getting paid benefits. They're getting paid rent governmentally. And to me, it doesn't track that we take better care of people that have lived here their entire lives and that are citizens that have worked here than people who just happen to come one day and like, hey, I'm here. We're getting everything. And the Somalians are infamous for that, which is a huge problem. But this other clip I want to play is a gentleman named Sam Tripoli. This was from a Joe Rogan podcast in 2023. And over 2.5 years ago, he calls what is about to happen, what is going on. Take a listen to this clip and I'll be right back.
We're in the Bolshevik war right now, bro. And right now what's coming up is all the pride stuff is going to be, okay, so I had this woman come on my podcast, her name's Mel K. She goes, I've been talking to some people in the intelligence and they go, this gay pride stuff is going away. And the next thing you're going to see are immigration riots. This is going to be right around the next election. So hand to God, we do this episode. Next day, Starbucks is like, we're banning all the pride stuff. And now you start seeing they're putting little breadcrumbs out, man. Little breadcrumbs. Oh, I saw this one thing in Chicago. Oh, yeah, the illegal immigrants are upset about where they're staying. And these illegal immigrants who speak no English are holding up perfectly written English signs saying we're tired of how we're being treated.
And now you see that now.
And now you're starting to see this over and over again. Eric, so everyone's always like when all these Republican governors are like sending these immigrants all over the country, everyone's like, yeah, you're showing those Democrats. Bro, they're moving assets. I know it sounds crazy, but that is 100%
What do you mean they're moving assets? What do you mean?
Dude, these guys coming into the country, bro, have you seen them? A lot of them are Chinese and a lot of them are military age people. And I'm telling you, they're moving. And this is what's going to be right around 2024 election, immigration riots, people going nuts. And as listen to this, and you'll start seeing all the little breadcrumbs. I'm telling you, that's what they want you to think.
You're buying it.
Oh, I thought
they're moving assets, bro.
You're the puppet.
They're moving assets.
What do you mean, like military people?
Dude, study the Bolshevik War. It is happening in real time. 100%.
But
I just wanted to get that out to everybody because I'm trying to warn people. This is what's next.
All right, folks. So we see the transition from the LGTB, ABCQ plus rights have migrated. You're hearing far, far less about that. Now it is the focus on ICE. It's the focus on people here illegally. And that is what's being prompted. That is the Trojan horse that is being used to will out what I believe the evil actors in this country want to use in order to destroy America. Like I've said time and time again, once this country falls, the Antichrist, I believe, is going to be unveiled and begin to rise, and nothing to stop at that point. And, I find it interesting. I'm a huge Orwell fan. And lately I've been seeing, especially on different socials, how my leftist or progressive friends have been quoting this little portion from Orwell's 1984. Let me just read it to you. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final and essential command. And if all others accepted the lie which the party imposed, if all records told the same tale, then the lie passed into history to become truth. Once again, that's a quote from Orwell's seminal book, 1984. And I find it's funny because no disrespect, but most liberals are very ignorant. I doubt they've even read it. I think they probably found that quote on one of their friends' social media pages and said, oh yeah, that's about ICE, that's about Trump. And it really isn't. You really have to understand the context of that book. And really the context of the book is that the party or Big Brother, it was demanding that certain facts be defined as false, but being made or being believed to be true, such as 2 + 2 is 5. You can read the last struggle between Winston and O'Brien at the end when O'Brien's trying to break Winston. Winston, 2 + 2 is 5. No, it's not. And there's this struggle for him to hold on to the truth and believe the truth, to eventually, spoiler alert, he's broken and begins to expout 2 + 2 is 5. We also have to understand that ultimate and psychological control ensuing that even if someone sees something, they accept the party's lies. They accept Big Brother's lies. And it focuses citizens to engage in what Orwell called doublethink. It's the ability to hold two contradictory beliefs simultaneously, which destroys the capacity for independent thought. So it's like saying, oh, it's -3 outside, but it is warm. Believing that it's -3 and that it's warm at the same time are two contrary thoughts. And when you are in that state of doublethink, you are not able to rationally look at things on a logical, on a common sense level and just use deductive reasoning to conclude what is truth here. What is my understanding of what's going on? It's a psychological warfare that's happening. It's part of the spiritual warfare that is being deployed. And I really don't have too much else to say other than I'm just getting to a point where we need to start to be outspoken. We need to not just believe in silent, but live out loud our beliefs. I keep hearing all this, love wins and love this and that or the other. And I don't really believe that's love that they're referring to. What I believe is that is permission to live sinful lives, permission to cause destruction, permission to hurt others in lieu of people's feelings, permission to believe and live a lie and to injure those that refuse to live in that make-believe world with them. So I don't believe it's love they're referring to. I believe they're saying we want permission to create our own doublethink world. Men can have babies. That's an example of doublethink. Genderless bathrooms. That's another example of doublethink. And it's so pervasive now. And the thought that illegal aliens aren't illegal, that they haven't broken any laws. Yes, they came here without going through the proper channels. I'm sure, living where I live near a city called Perry, Ohio, nursery capital of America, there are a lot of illegals here. They come up every spring, leave every fall, and they do a lot of work that people like myself probably don't want to do or are incapable of doing. They do provide a service, and they come here and then they leave. Is there a harm in that? Not necessarily. Just on a humanistic level, there's no harm in people wanting to work hard, provide for their families, and provide for them. That's what we all want. We all want to work hard. We all want to live in safe neighborhoods. We all want to raise our families and not hurt people. Just be happy, go about our day-to-day lives. But the problem is how they've done it is wrong. I could steal a car and learn how to drive without getting a driver license, and I may be the best driver in the world. But without going through the proper licensing process and not going through the proper process of legally procuring a car, I'm still breaking the law. It doesn't matter how good of a driver I am. Where I really want to discuss as I'm bringing this to an end is when we're starting to break up moments of worship, when we're engaging in plots of double-think tyranny. To be specific, I go back to the summer of 2020 when COVID was everywhere. You couldn't walk into a store without a mask. Well, I did, but you couldn't go. Most people wouldn't go into a store without a mask. That's tyranny. People were forced to buy Obamacare if they didn't have insurance. That's tyranny. I have a hard time rationalizing duly sworn federal law enforcement agents going about their job, trying to apprehend not only criminals who are here illegally, but criminals who have perpetrated and broken the laws of this land, murder, theft, sexual assault, so on and so forth. I look at these videos of people being shot just sitting on their front porch during COVID by Governor Tim Walz versus that people like Renee Good or Alex Preddy, how horrible it might be, that people are saying that's the real tyranny. For me, the real tyranny is minding your own business on your private property and being assaulted by National Guardsmen conducted at the whim of a perverted madman, Tim Walz. I think that's the real tyranny. Not being able to freely and safely worship your God in his house without the threat of violence, without the threat of rioting. That's tyranny. And I think we need to be very sober-minded in what is and what isn't tyranny. We need to be very sober-minded in our response, Christ-like. Once again, I think a handful of men could have very easily diverted this from going on. But my question is, where are the men in Christendom? Where are the pastors? Where are the lions in the pulpit that will not accept these kind of things? I'm calling to you. I'm asking you to prepare your flock. I'm asking you to prepare yourself for the hour in which we live in. And I'm saying that to those who are listening as well. We need to prepare ourselves for the hour that we're living in. We need to be steadfast. We need to be resolute. We need to walk in the authority of Christ. And that's it. I'm upset that things are escalating how they are. However, we know from the Podesta plan, this is what's happening. They're trying to cause civil war. I'm surprised that there hasn't been more shootings and injuries of people from ICE or DHS. I think they've shown great resilience and patience. And my encouragement to you listening would be, look at everything equally. Look at everything with a fair mind. Try not to look at everything through the political lens or through the media bias lens that you are. Things are happening that are horrible. A woman was shot in the face, which is horrible, leaving behind a child. But that woman also slammed on the gas on the behest of her lesbian wife, who said, "Go, baby, go," and was attempting to kill a person who is an ICE agent. But I've been ran over by a car before. It isn't fun, let me tell you. This other gentleman, Alex Preddy, who came to alleged protest armed with a gun. Probably not the best thing. You play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and I'm sorry, it's horrible what happened, but unfortunately, a lot of people think I'm just going to get a gun and people are going to respect me. If you don't know how to use that thing, put that away. You're going to get hurt. Your loved ones are going to get hurt. That's just a fact. I say that to anyone. So I just want to pray us out. I have a real heavy heart as I'm sharing this because I'm very concerned about where this is going. I'm calling on the leaders of our church bodies to prepare people to walk in the authority and walk in the demonstrable compassion and love of Christ. These people are mentally ill. I believe that. They need compassion. They don't need coddled. They don't need to be propped up and given a pat on the back. They need accountability, as do other people who on the other side are everything that Trump does is right and everything is beautiful. And I don't believe that either. I think our Department of Justice is feckless. And I think everybody from Pam Bondi and Kash Patel need to be kicked out on their butts. I think Dan Bongino is like Dan Crenshaw is a two-timing, backstabbing Benedict Arnold. And I think we need to start waking up to the people like that who are and start calling them out. At the end of the day, the reason this is happening because America's time is most likely running out. We're on a very short time clock here. Christ's return is probably coming sooner than most of us think. I know that my point of view, we're going to live through some hard times, but all this is happening to fulfill the scriptures. And all this is happening because of the unfortunate state of humanity. So I just want you guys to prepare, make right with the Lord, be in his word, hear from him, study and pray and be ready. And that's what I mean by be prepared. Be in the word, be full with the Spirit of God, be full with his righteousness. And Lord, I just lift up the people listening. I lift up myself. God, I ask that you would just help me live in your righteousness. Help me live in your word. Help me live according to your precepts. And Father, I just ask right now for those listening that you would help them as well. I pray for those of you who are listening who might be triggered, God, I ask right now that you would speak to their hearts in a way that they would hear and that they would understand what your heart is, what you are trying to convey. Lord, I ask for all of us that you just soberly remind us of the Romans 11:22 reality, that we must behold the severity and the kindness that you have for us. And Father, I just pray this all in your Son, Jesus' name, amen. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in to another week. This heavy this week, heavy last week, but heavier this week. I just want you guys to be prepared in the Lord. A couple things I have coming up ahead, just like to share with you guys. I will be speaking Sunday, February 1st and Sunday, February 8th at our church, Freedom Assembly in Mentor, right off of Heisley Road. Time is 10:30 when that starts. I'd love to have you guys come. If you want to come, I'll bring some books. I'll make sure I can sign them. If any of you guys want them, love to meet you, love to say hi. I also want to just, tell you guys to continue to share, continue to, leave 5-star comments, leave 5-star reviews, all that helps. Share, put on your Facebook, your social media, wherever. You can find us anywhere podcasts are. Just search Flawedcast CLE. We're on Apple, Spotify, Breaker, Anchor.fm. Once again, anywhere podcasts are, just search Flawedcast CLE. You can find us on the video platform Rumble. That's under Flawed Inc. You can find us on the Project Mockingbird social media. That is also under Flawed Inc. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, Getter, Gap, Parler, and we are also now on Threads. Once again, all under Flawed Inc. In the description of this episode, you'll find a link to get a copy of my book, Smith's Heart of Man Repair Manual, or I'll have some in person on Sunday, February 1st and Sunday, February 8th while I'm speaking at our church, Freedom Assembly. And our email is flawedinccle@gmail.com. Questions, comments, or concerns, send them there. But love you guys. Stay alert and stay present in the Lord and Holy Spirit, and be safe out there.